Yep.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today on our Community Tech Talk. Great to have you here again. And, we'll keep these going every 2 weeks. So, look for announcements on your calendars and exciting topics that we'll be covering. And essentially, the Community Tech Talks are a way for us to, connect as a community together to talk technical for ML ops and specifically, getting those models into production. What obstacles do we have? What use cases, and how can we help each other out in those situations? So it's definitely a vehicle in which we're going to cover some of our product and content in a technical sense, but we also want to make sure that you get something out of this as an audience and it's a useful time for you. So we'd love to get any feedback that you have on these. You can contact me directly, either at community@wallaroo.ai or martin.bald@wallaroo.ai. So I'd love to hear from you. So for today's talk, what we're going to do is if you happen to join us in 2 weeks ago, or you watched the video on our YouTube channel of our Tech Talk, where John Hanzarek, our senior technical document writer, he went through deploying models using Jupyter notebooks and also with our SDK, and he touched into a bit of Databricks as well, and so we have my colleague today. We're going to go a little bit deeper into showing Databricks, but specifically, what we're going to do is take this to the next level by showing a real world case. It's great for us to use tutorials, but my colleague is on the front line with customers, deploying and going through these scenarios with them. And so what Will will do is he'll show us how a data scientist takes a computer vision model all the way from training through experimentation, deployment, and monitoring. And so it's those key stages in getting your ML models into production. And so this use case will be like a cashier-less store. So if you've ever been to an Amazon Go or you've seen it, essentially this is where customers enter into the shop. They pick up what they want. There's cameras, a lot of AI and ML models there that recognize what their customer has picked, and then they just walk out. There's no cashier, and off you go. And I've been to a couple myself. Our stadium here in Seattle has that model as well, where you go in, you pick up a chicken burger and a drink, and you walk out, and you get the bill to your credit card. So there's no lineups and situations like that. So with all these camera sensors, the computer vision techniques, and then implementing that deep learning to register those products, we'll get to see that from the demo today. My name is Martin Bald. I'm the community manager at Wallaroo. So I engage with folks like yourselves and experts in the field, and love to meet with the tech community, whether you're data scientist, MLE, etc. So thanks for joining us. I'm just going to hand it over to my colleague, and will introduce himself and take it from here.
All right. Hey guys, my name is Will Berger, and I'm a solutions engineer for Wallaroo. So you'll see me a lot on demos, and then as you start to become customers, you'll see me help make sure that you get onboarded efficiently and quickly. So I'm basically there to grease the wheels, right? So hey Martin, I think you need to
Stop sharing. I just realized that. So yeah, you've got control.
Okay, let's see here. I think that's what we want.
So yeah, as Will pulls up his screen, what he'll go through, we have tutorials on our doc site. So if you want to sort of try this, follow along, we have a free community edition that you can download, go through yourself, install, and then you can run through this tutorial as well as others also. So sorry, back to you, Will.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys, before I get going, I just want to say a quick shout out to Martin. Martin, thank you so much for what you do for the community edition. We really appreciate it. We're the solutions engineers, and he's getting our product out into the market. He's doing such a fantastic job. And Martin, thank you. All right. All right. We're going to jump right into it then. Guys, I'm super excited about the demo that I have for you. We're going to be showing you why the Wallaroo platform, when it's combined with Databricks, these two things are really a powerful solution. So yes, I am going to be giving you a demo in the context of computer vision, but we've added a little twist to it. I'm also going to be showing it to you in the context of Databricks. So today, what I mean when I say Databricks integration and Wallaroo, why is this a powerful solution? Databricks obviously is very good at training models and getting them ready for production, but actually getting them into production and managing that life cycle, that's not its core competency. Wallaroo specializes in taking those trained models and then deploying them into production, monitoring those models throughout the life cycle of the model's existence. And so you take those two solutions, you put them together, and it becomes a compelling story. And that's what I'm going to be showing you today. So let's go take a look at it. So as Martin mentioned, we're going to be taking the use case of a cashierless store. The store, in this case, has got 3 cameras deployed, each connected to a Wallaroo pipeline that's running the MobileNet computer vision model, and this is running in a Wallaroo Azure cluster. So what you're looking at here is the Wallaroo workspace. So the first time when you install Wallaroo and you log in, this is the thing that you're going to see. And a workspace is a collaboration tool that gives your team secure and easy access to their pipelines. And so what you're looking at here is the computer vision workspace. I've selected it. And we can see that we've got 3 of 3 active pipelines. And then we've got a model. And then over here on the right-hand side is the collaborator section. And the collaborator section is where you invite team members. So maybe I'll invite another data scientist or a ML engineer to come join this project as we work on getting this particular model trained, tested, deployed, and into production. All right, so that's the collaborators section. I wanted to come back here into the pipeline section and just talk through that a little bit. So what I've just done is I've clicked in on all the pipelines that we have in this workspace. And so a Wallaroo pipeline is a little bit different than what we typically think of when we say the word pipeline. It's the vehicle for deploying, serving, and monitoring trained ML models in the Wallaroo platform. So a pipeline is typically going to be comprised of a trained model, sometimes some pre and post transformation steps in it. And a typical pipeline, a really simple one, will have a single model with it. But more complicated pipelines can be have multiple models that are chained together to orchestrate some specific kind of prediction. And so these 3 pipelines, you can see they're named cameras 1, 2, and 3, and they are active and running. So let's go take a look at one. And here we can see camera 3 pipeline. It has the MobileNet model and the version number. Everything is audited in Wallaroo. So we can see that this MobileNet model is running this version. And then here we can see the pipelines. The pipelines are monitored as well. This is really important because if you ever need to roll back to a previous pipeline, you can just hit that button right there. And then we've got the deploy, undeploy button, and you can roll back to whatever specific version that you want. Okay, so now moving on to the next thing here. This is the metrics section, and we can see that our pipeline, this is camera 3 pipeline, is receiving roughly 0.4 requests per second. We're running roughly about, looks like 8.6 inferences per second. And then we can see that our latency for every inference is roughly 213.7 milliseconds. All right. So so this is the concept of Wallaroo workspaces. I wanted to get this out of the way before we start going in and talking about Databricks integration. So anyway, so that's that. All right. Anybody have any questions before I move on to the next topic, where we're going to be talking about actually deploying a trained model into Wallaroo from Databricks?
I don't see any questions, but the one thing that that I was thinking of that might be good for the audience is, you know, if folks don't want to use the UI, right? You know, so it's great, yeah, we got UI, but what if you don't want to use that UI? You've got other investments that your company has made, other tools, etc. You know,
Yeah.
what other options do folks have?
Yeah, good question, Martin. So the question is, like right here, we're looking at our metrics, and maybe there's a metric in there that you're not seeing that you want to have, or whatnot, right? One thing that's really nice about Wallaroo is that it sits on top of Kubernetes. So whatever tools that you use for monitoring Kubernetes will still work with Wallaroo. One of the things Wallaroo prides itself on is not locking you into a specific solution. And so, for example, maybe you would like to use Grafana or something like that to use an alternative dashboard. We have Prometheus that's under the hood. That's also that's right there for you to use. We added our own metrics to it specifically for pipelines and running models. And so, yeah, absolutely, you can run other third-party types of dashboards or things like that to monitor pipelines. Okay. Any other questions, Martin, on the topic of workspaces and Wallaroo pipelines before we push on?
Not right now. Don't see anything.
Okay. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to get a new camera to be able to perform object detection by training a new computer vision model in Databricks and then deploying it to Wallaroo. What does that experience look like? And so what we're doing here now is I've switched over to Databricks. So this is Azure Databricks. And I've hopped into the models page here. And so here what you can see is that we're running two models. We're running the MobileNet model, which is actually our production model. And then we've got our challenger model, our beta model, if you will, which is ResNet 50, and it's on version 5. And so by leveraging MLflow's registry, which is what we're doing by having the model here registered through Databricks, we've got one central repository for tracking all of our assets, whether they're training assets, whether they're production assets, production models, production pipelines, whether they're experiments being run in training, testing, or production, doesn't matter. We've got one nice central place to be able to track this. So, and the benefit of this is this eliminates the need for the data scientists or the ML engineers to have to go to their own separate system. It's all centrally located. All right. So now let's go over here to the experiments section, just to give you a sense for that. These are the different notebooks that we used to train and test these computer vision models to make sure that they're working properly. So I'm going to skip the details of going through that. And let's go directly into talking about how we're going to take a Databricks notebook that has got and go get a trained model from the MLflow registry, a trained CV model, and then deploy it into Wallaroo. What does that look like? Okay, how simple is this to do? And let me walk you through these steps. Okay, so what I've just done is I've gone into my GitHub repo, pulled up that notebook, and we're going to be deploying the MobileNet computer vision model. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to import the Wallaroo SDK and its supporting libraries. So let me make that happen. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to securely connect Wallaroo to the, we're going to securely connect this Databricks notebook to the Wallaroo cluster is what I meant to say. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the latest model from that central repository, which in our case is the MLflow registry. So let's go make that happen. And so here you can see it's telling us that we're getting the MobileNet version 2, and then this is the URI for accessing it. And then what we're going to do, the next step here is we're going to upload this to Wallaroo. So we're going to be using the Wallaroo SDK to upload this particular model to the Wallaroo cluster that's running in the Azure environment. Now, Wallaroo accepts all types of models. It doesn't matter what kind you have. Typically, we try to convert things to TensorFlow or to Onyx, mainly because we can give you some speed enhancements. Wallaroo is a high scalable inferencing machine, engine that really helps you run your inferences very efficiently in production, right? So, so for that reason, that's why we try to convert things over to TensorFlow or to Onyx, but there are many models that you just can't do that with. And so for that, we also support MLflow models as well. And we run those as a containerization model. So you can take your exact code the way you have it, and we can deploy it and make sure that everything runs nice and smooth there. Now, let's push on from there. So the next thing that we're going to do is we need to tell Wallaroo what resources we're going to need from the cluster. So here we're going to say our pipeline is going to need one inference engine. We're going to have one CPU, and we're going to have want to have 2 GB of memory for this pipeline. So let's make that happen. Now, this is going to vary depending on your situation. If you are have a situation where your load varies goes up and down during the day, you may want to use our auto scaling features. If you're running batch, you may want to increase the amount of memory we're using and the number of CPUs. Kind of give you a sense for that. Okay, so the next step that we're going to want to do is building our pipeline in Wallaroo. This is accomplished literally with one line of code. So here we're going to name our pipeline. We're going to add the model that we just uploaded, and then we're going to use the deployment configuration that we've just created. So let's make that happen. And this is where all the magic happens behind the scenes. Wallaroo is creating that super fast Rust-based inferencing engine. It's configuring it with, in our situation, 2 gigs of RAM with 1 CPU, so that it can handle running thousands of object detections as those frames are coming from camera number 4, right? All right. So, okay. Now, something that's really important to note here is that this is one of the really nice benefits of Wallaroo, is that it is very data scientist friendly and also ML engineer friendly, and meaning that your data scientists, they're never going to have to deal with a YAML file or having to deal with infrastructure type of topics. Your ML engineers are going to love it because it's going to install within 30 minutes. It does the right thing. And we've got all these pre-flight checks, and it's just a really nice experience. So I think both of them will love that. All right, so now that our pipeline's deployed, there are 2 ways that you can run inference in Wallaroo. And the first method is to use the SDK, and that's what we're doing right here. We're going to take that pipeline we just deployed, and we're going to call infer on it. And we're going to be feeding it this input image. Now, I didn't run this. I skipped this step. Let me come back here and talk through this just a moment. But before we can run inference, we need to first load and resize and transform an input image into the appropriately sized tensor so that it meets the requirements of the MobileNet object detector. So in this case, the requirements is that the width and the height is 640 by 480. And so that's what we're doing here, is just getting everything ready. And now that I've transformed my image to get it ready, I'm going to run inference. And now let's see what happens here. So this is going to execute, and the results are going to be stored in output. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the output and draw it onto the image. And so you'll notice as this is running, MLflow is executing, and it's recording every object that was detected in this image. And it's recording this into MLflow so that the data scientist can go back. I'm going to show you this in just a moment. So let's take a look at what we're looking at here. So we can see that we're using the MobileNet model, and we're using the pipeline camera for PP. And these are inference times. And then we can see in here that it has properly detected the refrigerator, that there are a number of bottles in this picture as well. And we can see that, that it's properly categorizing it and giving us the % confidence that it thinks. And so that, folks, is how simple it is to deploy a model in Wallaroo and Databricks. And this is a simple computer vision model, right? So now one other point, just real quick, is let's take a look. The data scientist now sees the picture right here. Maybe he wants to start doing some analysis on it. So we can come over here and click on their experiment runs. And then now it's got those Wallaroo inference results being displayed right here. So here you see, we saw a refrigerator, we see the bottle. And so now that it is in this table, the data scientist can slice and dice this, sort this, and every run that they're doing, it's being recorded so they can tune and make good modifications to really make this model be accurate, right? And give us good results in terms of predictions. Okay, so folks, that's how simple it is to deploy into Wallaroo and in using Databricks, a pipeline, a computer vision pipeline. Any questions before I move on?
It will, and it's great. We just announced this morning, if you've seen on LinkedIn, about our integration with Databricks. So we also integrate with Azure ML. Is there anything else that, I mean, I know what they are, but it'd be good if you could tell the audience,
yeah, of course.
Where else do we integrate? And again, going back to that conversation of, companies make investments, and how can we help, with Wallaroo, how can we help integrate with those and make those work better on their behalf?
Yeah, and help them, protect them from having to take on tech debt. Yeah, it's one of the things that Wallaroo really prides itself on, is we try not to lock ourselves into one set of technology. So this seamless integration that you're seeing here with Databricks, we have that same experience with Azure ML. We have that same experience with Google Vertex as well. And we're continually adding new platforms as they come into the future. That's something you can count on, that you'll have you'll be able to look forward to seeing that happen. Now, if your favorite AI training environment is not here, we also have the Wallaroo SDK and the Wallaroo REST API, where you can do everything that you're seeing here. You can do as well in those environments simply by leveraging those two APIs. All right.
Yeah, great. And the one thing that like about, like the APIs, we saw the UI, the dashboard, we have the SDK, and then, these APIs. And I think, whenever in my sort of previous roles, the benefit of having those options are that, if you're a data scientist, MLE, and you're familiar with working with an SDK, it's a natural environment for you. If you're familiar in a UI, natural environment. And so the good thing about having those options is you don't have to go for retraining. You're not burning up time doing that. You get right into deploying your models and solving what you need to solve, rather than trying to figure out how does this thing work, right? And that saves companies and yourselves like a bunch of time. Yep.
Good point. All right, Martin, we're going to hop on to the next topic. We've just got a few minutes left here, so I do want to mention these things real quick. I'm not going to be able to demo them because we've just got 5 minutes, but we'll be glad to demo this to you guys in subsequent webinars. But I think it's important that I mention them, because it really goes to the point of this particular session, where we're talking about having Databricks and having Wallaroo, that combined solution. It's a compelling offering. And this is one of the big reasons why. And so while Databricks does a great job of training, when it comes to deployment, it really lacks a lot of features in terms of being able to manage a production ML environment. And some of the places where Wallaroo can really help complement your solution is with our advanced deployments. So let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about here. Now, for example, that your data scientists have deployed a model like we just did in production, it won't be long before your data scientists come up with a new improved version of the models. And you're not going to be able to just deploy the latest and greatest into production without testing it. So how can you get your new models into production and have 100% confidence that the new model is going to outperform the old one safely? And Wallaroo has a unique twist to this. You're not going to see this in many other deployment tools. And I think you're going to find it interesting. So the first concept is our shadow deployments. And it's very useful if you want to try out a new model, but you don't want to run the risk of any of your inferences that are currently running in production. So with shadow deployment, your production model continues to receive 100% of the input data, and it's going to copy that input data and send it to each of your challenger models, your beta models, the ones that you want to try out with production data, but you're afraid to, right? Now you can do that and not be afraid. You can compare your production model inferences to those challenger model inferences in real time and have the confidence that should you choose to deploy that challenger, that it's going to perform better than the current model. Very powerful concept. All right, another advanced deployment we have is A/B testing, where we designate a control and one or more challenger versions of your model, and where we're going to split the incoming traffic between the control and the challenger models. And now, how much traffic is going to go to the control versus the challenger is going to depend how you configure your pipeline. But that's one of we've got a lot of advanced capabilities. And what's unique about Wallaroo, unlike most systems that you're going to see that are going to try to do some sort of routing-based solution, with Wallaroo, the actual routing is happening inside the pipeline. So that's going to give you the ability to have much more flexibility to customize this unique to your business requirements, and it's going to run much more efficiently and effectively, and it's going to be a lot easier to deploy. Okay, so that's that concept. Martin, I've got one more topic to discuss. Hopefully I can get that done in the next minute, but it's an important one.
Yeah,
Yep.
no rush. We'll
Okay, all right. Super. And here's another reason, the why. Why do I like this solution of Databricks and Wallaroo, right? And that is the concept of a model observability. And so what we're talking about here, for example, is anomaly and data detection for your models that are deployed in production. So how can Wallaroo help you detect problems with your production deployed models? How can we know exactly what has broken down in our model and where, and then proactively notify you? Well, the first way to do that is with an anomaly detection, where what we're doing is we're doing data validation on your model. We're detecting and setting boundaries on your model's inputs or outputs to determine if your model is producing incorrect results. And then we're going to notify you via our API call and let you know that your model is exceeding anomaly boundaries, and then you can take the appropriate action. Now, the other way that we can help you understand where things are going wrong and kind of get ahead of the game is through a concept of drift detection. And this is really important. You may have heard of the term model rot. This is something very different from traditional software development, where typically we run, we test, we deploy, and then you pretty much don't have to worry about it. With machine learning and AI, it's different, because as your data starts to change in production, it may result in your models start to drift and start to not give you accurate results. And that's what drift detection is all about. With drift detection, we're trying to identify the variations in the production data from the data we use to test and validate the model before deploying. And this becomes important because if the incoming data is significantly different from that data the model was trained on, your prediction accuracy of your model could suffer, and you could result in some serious bad outcomes for your business. So with Wallaroo, this is super simple to implement. You can do this via an assay right from your dashboard. The data scientists can do this. Once you set it up, it's going to be completely automated, your drift detection. So for the data scientist, all they have to do is go into the Wallaroo UI and create the assay, configure it, set it up for whatever resolution time they want it to run. Do they want it to run every minute, every hour, every day, every week, whatever it is? Once they've set it and they hit the publish button, then that assay is set, and you can set it, forget it, and your drift detection is automated and you don't have to worry about it. Very powerful reason why to look at Wallaroo. All right, so Martin, that I think covers everything I wanted to cover on the demo today, and back to you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Will. Yeah, so appreciate everyone joining us today. This is being recorded, as you probably saw at the beginning, and we'll post this on our YouTube channel. Will, if you can just give me control back, I'll show folks a couple of resources, and then we'll let everyone go. So,
all right, just a second. If I can figure.
That's okay. I've got it. Yeah, I'm done.
Super.
I wrestled it back from you. So yeah, it's what Will showed there is a deep dive into how Wallaroo helps you it's that production ML platform, right? So I've been involved in projects where the experimentation, ideation, and training those models. And then you just get to a junction where you're like, okay, how do we get this into production? Like, what's involved and so on. And so that's kind of like where we come in. And what Bill showed you there is computer vision's a really hot topic, and so being able to sort of take those models, whether they're in XGBoost or another format, we have conversion tools, getting them into Onyx or those others. And then integration, if you've invested in, if you have Databricks or ML or, SageMaker, Vertex, etc., that integration is super important for any technology to allow folks to, integrate with those platforms, and then also integrate with the visualizations for observability and monitoring. And then the capabilities built into the product. Once you have your models in production, it doesn't stop there, right? You need to have the capability of testing those models and validating them if they're performing through A/B testing, shadow deploy, and you can do that in production, so you don't have to wind down your production pipelines. And then as Will mentioned, that drift is super important. I think drifting is probably fun if you're in a sports car, but when it comes to ML, it's super important to be able to see what's happening with the models, detect that drift, and take proactive actions to make sure again that your model's performing the way it is. But we have a number of different resources here. As I mentioned, you can go through that computer vision tutorial that Will showed you. If you can download our free community edition. You don't get sales calls or anything. You actually get access to our community Slack, where you can ask questions, and you can email our community or martin.ball@wallaroo.ai. And we also have a YouTube channel. So this is being recorded, and I will post this onto our YouTube channel along with a host of other content that we are posting up, on a daily and weekly basis. Well, once again, Will, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining us here today, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks on our next Community Tech Talk. Thank you. Bye-bye.